Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Power Parsha Pearls. It's a magical time of the year. It's Chanukah. It's coming up next week, which is all about the candles, the brightness, the illumination, and we all have that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. In fact, every time Chanukah comes along, I'm reminded of the story about young Patricia who's walking through the streets of Dublin when she met up with her old pastor. Patricia, how are you? Long time no see. Indeed, Father, I'm now living in London. Nice. Any hubby yet? And some little babies? Yes, Father, I've got me a hubby. Married 5 years, but no little babies yet. Bless you, child. Not to worry. I'm going to the Vatican. I will be sure to light a candle for you there. 5 years later, Patricia's walking down the same street, some children in tow, when she bumps into the same vicar. Good to see you again, Patricia. How's life in London? Father, it's wonderful. Everything is dandy. Oh, and I see you got some little babies. How lovely. What have you got? She says, Father, I got me 2 sets of twins and 1 triplets. Praise the Lord. That's wonderful. And where's your hubby then? Oh, he's gone off to the Vatican to blow out the stupid candle. Inasmuch as we light our candles to remember the miracle of the menorah in the Hanukkah story, Jewish law stipulates that you should light it from when the sun starts to set. And this is in direct contrast to the way the original candles were lit on the menorah in the temple, specifically by day. Furthermore, in the temple, all 8 candles were lit every single time, every single day, while we add another candle day by day, starting with 1 and then working our way upwards. Why the discrepancy if the whole point and purpose of our menorah, or Chanukah as you might call it, is to resemble and commemorate the miracle of the oil on the menorah in the temple? Then why do we have these glaring discrepancies of ours being lit specifically at night, whereas that was lit by day, ours being lit in ascending order, whilst those were lit 8 candles all the time, every time? What is a candle? You are a candle. Think about it. A candle is a ball of wax with fire burning at the top. You are a body, and your soul is, as it were, the fire on the top. To quote the verse, Ki ner Hashem nishmat adam, the soul of man is the fire of God. And let's face it, some candles burn bright, while others might wax and wane at risk of being blown out. Some people, their souls are on fire. They shine bright. They're like the sun in the middle of the day. Other people, their souls may be switched off for one reason or another. They walk in darkness. They're like the thick black in the middle of the night. Think about it in the context of planets. Mercury is very hot because it is closest to the sun. Pluto is extremely cold because it is the farthest planet from the sun. So you might say there may be Mercury Jews, always so close to God, so switched on, always so hot and passionate about their faith. Like the planet, they're close to the essence of light, so their lives shine bright and radiant with spiritual luminescence. And there may be what you would call Pluto Jews, those who stumble, those who might struggle, those who grapple with coldness and apathy in their Jewish lives. They're so far from the light, they find themselves at a distance for whatever the reason that they might have endured in their lives, that they walk in darkness. Now, for the most part, most Jews are neither Mercury nor Pluto. We walk planet Earth, somewhere in between. We have both hot and cold moments as part of our living reality. We're neither bright as day, but we're not dark as night. We vacillate between extremes. In fact, you might say we're very much like the sunset, not always shining bright, not necessarily dark. We're fluctuating Jews. We're navigating both experiences. And so I look at the Chanukah candle and I see myself, a body and a soul. I'm lighting specifically at sunset, and I recognize the reality that I am a sunset Jew. The struggle ongoing between light and dark. But even in those darker moments, during those times of struggle, how do I get myself to shine a little brighter? How do I fire up my soul once more? Well, I consider the reality that these candles are lit purposefully in increasing order. If I want to light up my life, I have to add a little light every day. I don't light all eight at once. I'm not at that level. Just a little bit of light, one good deed, daily gestures. that add meaning and splendor into my existence. That is the reality of our lives. That is the essence of Judaism in our world today. It's not about quantum leaps. It's about steps. It's not about going from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. You do that and often you burn out. It's about growing gradually and resolutely. It's not about necessarily big bursts of light, lighting all 8 candles at once. It's about adding another flame every single day, day by day, but always maintaining the consistency in doing so. Let me share with you a brief story about the impact of a little light in the life of a Pluto Jew, a young man named Avraham Greenbaum. And he lost his entire family in the Holocaust. And after the war, he came to America and he really didn't want anything to do with Judaism. He was perhaps at one point more of a Mercury Jew, as so many were in the shtetl life of old. But after everything that was endured, all the trauma, all the pain, all the devastation, who's to blame them? But many became effectively Pluto Jews, if you will. So he changed his name from Avraham Greenbaum to Abe Green. He moved to Alabama, where there were at the time very few Jews. He got married, he had children. The day that his oldest daughter, Rachel, turned 12, they were not going to celebrate her bat mitzvah. Instead, nevertheless, Abe decided he's going to take Rachel to the mall and buy her anything she wanted there. And when they went into the big electronics store, they were browsing, Rachel's eye caught something in an antique shop just across the way. She was mesmerized. She couldn't take her eyes off what she had seen. And she suddenly turned to her father and says, I don't want anything from this store. I want to go across to the antique shop. He says, come on, what do you want in an antique shop? You're 12 years old. Pick anything you want in this store. No, I want something in the antique shop. And when they got there, the girl pointed to what she identified as an old menorah that she spotted there, albeit she wouldn't have known that that's what it was. And she said, that's what I want. Her father can't believe it. I'm letting you buy anything you want in the whole mall, and this is what you're choosing. He tried to talk her out of it. Come on, pick something else, but he couldn't. She was persistent. Neither he nor she necessarily even knew why, but Abe asked the shop owner the price of the menorah. To his surprise, the man replied, sorry, it's not for sale. Abe says, what do you mean it's not for sale? This is a store. You have it on display. He offered it again. More money, a little bit more. Again, the owner refused. This time he explained. He says, I found out the history of this menorah. A man built it during the Holocaust in the camps. It took him months to gather the pieces of wood together. It survived, but he did not. It's going to be a collector's item. It's not for sale. Come on, Rachel. Let's go back to another store or we'll go somewhere else. No, Dad, this is what I want. That's all I want. I want this menorah. So Abe Green kept offering more money until finally the owner couldn't resist and he had to agree to sell. And Rachel is so excited that she took the menorah up to her room and she played with it every single day. And one day, the parents heard a crash from Rachel's room. They run upstairs and they see the menorah broken to pieces. It had fallen and shattered. Needless to say, the father was quite upset. He got a little annoyed with his daughter. I paid so much money for this. Why were you so careless? A little while later, as any dad can relate to, especially with daughters, he felt bad about his reaction. He went to Rachel and he said, you know what, let's try to glue it back together. And then whilst holding one of the pieces of wood that made up one of the candles, Abe, the father, notices a piece of paper wedged inside and he pulled it out. And he opens up and there's words on it and he starts to read. And then tears well up in his eyes and then he fainted. And his family quickly come running and they throw water on him and they revive him. What happened? What happened? He says, I found this little piece of paper wedged inside this piece of wood here that makes up one of the candles of this menorah. Let me read you this letter. It was written in Yiddish, so I'll translate. To whomever finds this menorah, I want you to know that I constructed it not knowing if I would ever have the opportunity to light it. Who knows if I will even live till Chanukah to see it being kindled. In all probability, going through everything I have so far, I will not. But if Providence brings this menorah to your hands and you find this letter, promise me that you will light it for me and for us, for my family, and for all those who gave their lives as proud Jews. Abe Green then looked up at his family and in a choked up voice with tears still in his eyes, he said, the letter is signed by my father. The story, as recounted by Abraham himself, reminds us that Chanukah is not just a historical celebration of a miraculous victory of our past. It's a reflection of every modern day miracle as well. Not least the reality of our continued existence. The truth of our tumultuous history is such that whether pogroms or crusades or the Inquisition and the Holocaust, and indeed October 7th, there were those who constantly seek to obliterate us. But even as we hit our lowest point, the darkest moment of night is always just before the dawn, as we experience deliverance once more. Consider the very places that served as the epicenter of Jewish persecution. The Brandenburg Gate, upon which Nazi flags were hanging, now has a giant menorah erected in front of it each year. Is that not a miracle? In Russia, Germany, Hungary, the Ukraine, think of persecutions past and look at the giant menorahs today that stand tall before the Kremlin, at the Berlin Wall, at whichever other places besides. Is that then not a miracle? That's the truth of our people. From the terrible events of the past till October 7th last year, there were those who tried to extinguish our candle, but we always recover and we end up shining ever brighter. It's the miracle of our existence. And the lights above the menorah serve as a vivid reminder of how, irrespective of whatever the threats out there, the Jewish spark will always prevail, as its penetrating light permeates all corners of the religious spectrum. And at the same time, as we gaze into the Chanukah lights, we reflect upon the flames as they mirror the Jewish spark that burns brightly within each of us. You know, fire seems to have this drawing power. It causes one to become sometimes transfixed if you sit there just gazing into the naked flame. But again, after a while, one cannot help but notice the flame waning as the light dims and the warmth diminishes. Still, comes the next day and the same light is rekindled with yet another light added. Just as we think the light is extinguished and darkness seems to creep in, we are back with even greater intensity of light, magnifying the brightness, increasing the warmth, and enhancing the illumination. We could try to run away sometimes to Alabama, change our names. Sometimes we might be running away even within our own home, so to speak. But the Chanukah lights have a way of triggering the indomitable spirit and the inextinguishable spark within. The Chanukah lights remind us in the most obvious way that we must brighten our lives with the glorious glow of spiritual illumination. We have to seek to dispel whatever murky shadows and fill the void with rich and vibrant meaning and purpose. Even as some might, for one reason or another, wander in darkness, Chanukah lights have a way of miraculously illuminating their path, opening their eyes, and as Abraham Greenbaum came to discover, enabling them to find their way back. There is a spark of God that always remains within us. The sun burns bright within. That's undeniable. Each of us is always spiritually worthy, our precious souls yearning to respond to the call to return home. All it takes is a little light to trigger that spark and watch it evolve over time into a blazing inferno of spiritual endeavor, from one candle up to 8. So yes, in temple times, Jewish life was bright as day, and the menorah thus was lit by day. Everybody was engaged, everyone was involved, enthused, energized. Jewish life was all about 8 candles. But today it's altogether different. 2,000 years of trial and tribulation, the pervading darkness does overwhelm, but we light the Chanukah candles to remind us, do not despair. We might vacillate between extremes in our lives. We may be sunset Jews. We may sometimes struggle with darkness, but don't let that define you. Don't give up on yourself. You're more than just a ball of wax. You have a spark within as well, and it's waiting to be unleashed. The starting point, light a candle today. Again, do something meaningful. However trivial you might perceive it to be. And then tomorrow, do it again and add something more. That's the way we light up our lives. That's the way we light up our world. So as we head into Chanukah, wherever you are, be sure to light your menorah or your Chanukah, gaze into the flames, think of the past, look to the future. Recite the blessings and consider the blessing of Jewish endurance, resilience, and survival. And at the same time, think of the timeless words of our sages. A little light dispels a lot of darkness. Find something, anything that enables you to cultivate the dynamism and vibrancy that Judaism has to offer within your own soul, within your own home, within your own slice of the world, and thus making Chanukah very much a modern day event of the present, indeed, a modern day miracle. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom and a happy Hanukkah.